All right, I'm going to rewrite f of x in its factored form in terms of its complex factors. The first thing that I need to do is I need to solve to find out what the solutions are. So I'm going to factor out the x, and that's going to leave me with x squared plus 2x plus 3. X is the common factor. So now f of x is in factored form, but I don't have the complex factors yet. So I need to go off here to the side, and I need to solve this x squared plus 2x plus 3 equals 0 to find its complex solutions. So that's going to be the quadratic formula or completing the square, and I'm going to choose to do quadratic formula. So that's negative 2 plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So that's x equals, and I have to divide by 2, so negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1, plus or minus the square root of, and if I evaluate that discriminant, I get 4 minus 12, which is negative 8. I still need to divide that by 2. So x equals negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 8 is 2 root 2, so it's going to be 2i root 2 over 2. And the I shows up because I did the square root of a negative 1. And by dividing by 2, I end up with I root 2. So I have my complex solutions of x based off of that quadratic factor. So now I'm going to take those two solutions and I'm going to rewrite them back in factored form. So I have f of x equals x, that was this guy. And now taking the x minus and taking those solutions and putting them back in, that's negative 1 plus or minus I root 2. Essentially, I am finished, and I can stop here. Or I can simplify it a little bit further, and I end up with distributing this negative through x minus negative 1 plus or minus I root 2 is x plus 1 minus I root 2, and x minus 1 minus or plus I root 2. So this is my factored form and using its complex factors. Now just to recap, a couple of places where you might mess up is when you're doing this division over here, you need to make sure you divide both parts by 2. So the first one divided by 2, negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. And then the second half divided by 2 is all of that calculation divided by 2, which is here. So you do need to make sure you do that. And the second part that you might mess up on is getting this 2i root 2, and you need to make sure you know how to simplify a radical. So that's the square root of negative 8. Just to remind you, that's negative 4 times 2. It's the same thing as negative 8. And then negative 4 is 2i, and then the root 2 does not simplify. So that's where all of that came from. And then you reduce that by that divided by 2. Anyway, you take the final solutions, you pop them into your factor, and make sure that your factor always has an x minus a part of it, and then simplify. X minus a negative is plus. Ooh, I just found a mistake. X minus a negative is plus. So you need to make sure that you've got this plus, and then x minus a plus is a negative, and x minus a negative is a plus. The whole time, this little guy right here, which was that common factor they all had, is kind of hanging out at the front in its factored form. All right, hope that helps.